Well, good afternoon to you. I hope you've been doing well this last week. And let me proceed on maintenance 13. Basically, I was actually going to leap into topicals, and that's coming up very soon, if not next week. But in this, I wasn't able to give maintenance of mucus and the reasons to just stay on top of it as a maintenance issue, proper consideration in the episode on that is entitled Maintenance 12, which included, and I ended with mucus, but so I want to give it its proper due because it is a startlingly placed item in the way I view maintenance of health for the overall physical system. I didn't expect that. When I started studying Chinese and Ayurvedic herbalism with East-West School, I did not realize how predominant the role mucus played in both emotions and overall health. Everyone recognized colds are a real drag, and now with COVID, we are very aware of what the lungs can do when attacked with certain viruses. But in terms of maintenance, there's little attention given to staying on top of clearing. Like, for example, after you had a cold, and everybody just about gets the common cold, gets a cold here and there, maybe once a year, maybe once every couple years, or they'll say, no, I never get colds, but I do have nasal congestion, or they'll just have this little bit of mucus left in their lungs, and they disregard it. There are reasons not to disregard it as a maintenance issue, just like all the other items I've talked here in terms of maintenance, and just like you would pay attention to your diet or to exercise, paying attention to clearing mucus is important. Mucus predominantly, in terms of my training, predominantly is caused by low spleen key deficiency, when the spleen is not operating correctly. And I will have an individual, once I'm done with maintenance, I will get into the individual areas of chronic problems, and I will talk about those each individually. And spleen key deficiency / mucus will be one of those. And I'll talk way more about the spleen and about its contribution to this area, and if you have chronic problems, how to address it. But let's say you don't fall into that, and you just do get the periodic common cold or a little bit of nasal. Even to a degree, those that have allergies and so get the equivalent of cold symptoms and develop some mucus, the nasal congestion, etc. Mucus is the issue here. What happens with mucus is that if left in the body, it dries some. It doesn't all get evacuated. It dries into little tiny bits, often called phlegm. And the trouble is that it's where it positions itself. Mucus doesn't necessarily always, and I'm talking about the dried stage. After your nasal decongestion or slight cold that goes away, there can be leftover dried mucus from that deposits itself around the body. And when it does this, it can plug up like the fallopian tubes. It can plug key flows. It can even position itself in certain capillaries, and we're talking little tiny bits. But some of the problems that result from this can be things that become chronic, like edema. Edema is excess mucus in water, and it is partially caused by stagnation, and it needs to be cleared. But before it gets to that point, staying on top of clearing mucus, transforming it and clearing it from your system is just plain a good idea. Let me give you an example of one sort of perplexing result from dried mucus bits that position around the heart. In my training, Chinese and Ayurvedic predominantly, anger is an emotion that usually is caused by liver qi stagnation and liver blood stagnation. When there's stagnation in the liver, then emotions can result. They also help contribute to the stagnation, but they can be a result, a symptom that helps identify that there's liver stagnation, and that can be cleared. And one of the, I talked about that a little bit in maintenance already, that we need to stay on top of keeping blood stagnation and qi stagnation clear in the liver. But in addition, one of the things that can be confusing in trying to determine when working with a client, if they have a lot of anger presenting itself, and they talk about, oh, I don't understand the rage I'm feeling. It's, there's some reason for it, but it's sudden and it's worse than makes sense. When they talk about that, that should be paid attention to. And so if you're experiencing that, that is something, seek out a consult and get on an herbal regimen, because mucus, when it does position around the heart, it clogs different capillaries and veins to the extent that then the heart has to work way harder and it heats up. And when it heats up, anger is an emotion that it can produce. And I know that sounds a little unusual. You're not used to thinking of emotions as related to physical problems, physical manifestation, but in my training it is, and I have even personally felt when I'm suddenly getting on edge, more, than life warrants. That's to be noticed, and if you right away jump on that and do some clearing, both of mucus and the liver, it literally goes away. And I'm not saying that there isn't situational anger. You have a boss or a spouse or a child or whatever can help cause, circumstances can help cause situational anger that's justified. We're not talking about that here. We're talking about suddenly feeling more anger, and when it becomes chronic to the point of, some would use the word rage, and that can be related to heart heat. There are other manifestations of heart heat, and I'll go into that in a chronic treatment, because it alone, the heart, needs to be addressed in terms of different situations of that nature. And I'm clearing my throat a lot, so I should do a little bit of a clearing myself. And I think today, later on, my tea will include that a little, because that's a good example. It's still, I'm recording this, and I didn't pay attention, and coffee sometimes does this to me, because I do add dairy to my coffee. I love it that way. But at the same time, this is an example of paying attention to your bodily symptoms, as if they suddenly, like this, I'm clearing my throat more than I should. That's a little bit of mucus. It's really easy to toss in a mucus clearing herb to whatever tea blend you're making. Hyssop, mullein. Hyssop's just a really good one because it also addresses any sudden, like if this shifts to my nose or vice versa. Hyssop is very good for clearing all of those. Mullein is excellent for lung throat. Hyssop is more throat nose, but hyssop is also good for overall. And there are much stronger ones, which I'll go into when I address spleen key deficiency, like Pinellia. But this only warrants a little bit of hyssop tossed in, and that would help to clear. And that's the point. If you don't clear it, and you let it just sit there and go on for a few days, probably you will get a little bit of dried mucus in your system that'll just position itself somewhere. And then clearing that, once it has, it's more difficult than when it's still fluid, and like in your throat, in your nose. That's an easier time to clear it than when it's dried and is in little bits here and there. It takes stronger herbs and like a couple weeks of consistent tea in order to clear that. So get on top of it right away. The other places it positions, the dried flecks of mucus are often in the abdomen and the lower body. I don't know if it's gravity or if it's a poorly functioning kidney, but this can be a common placement. Little bits of mucus can plug fallopian tubes, and if someone is having concerns about fertility issues, do a mucus clearing first, just to make sure, because it happens, and I've had clients with that issue. Edema is when it's taken its time and has built to a much stronger level and has become chronic. But edema is a sign, and usually from the waist down. And this is also can be a sign of what's called kidney yang deficiency. Yang deficiency, when you have yang deficiency, and I've talked about yang in the overview, go back to the overview if you're forgetting what yang and yin and all those things are, because I really address these terms and refresh your memory on this. Yang is heat. And pitta is the same in Ayurvedic. Heat helps burn up mucus. So if you have enough yang going on, then you often have far less issues with mucus buildup. And yang, if you have enough yang, it often can stop it cold right at the start. Yang helps in food digestion. So without enough yang, you have too much yin, too much kapha. A kapha person in Ayurvedic is very yin, and some of the things that exacerbate this are dairy. Dairy can cause too much yin and can quench or stifle yang. So kidney yang deficiency, when there's not enough yang energy in the kidneys driving them, then you will often have a buildup of mucus and of edema in the lower body. So the positioning of where the mucus is and where the heavy moisture is can indicate what's causing it, whether it's spleen key deficiency and or kidney yang deficiency. And so that will help you address it at the chronic stage. But if you simply use different herbs, it can help a lot. I hope this has made some sense. I'll see you for the next maintenance episode next week. Take care.